So I work on a lot of our student programs, and I'm specifically focused on connecting Harvard students to one another and to other entrepreneurship resources on campus. So kicking off with introductions, I might pass it off to Adrian.
Hello, everyone. My name is Adrian Gill. I'm the CEO and founder of Ad Hoc Industries. We work on a wide cross-section of clients. One of them that are nearest and dearest to my heart is the Harvard Innovation Labs, where I worked for many years with Emmy. We've worked on many projects, including Barbados Tourism, where we did a global brand campaign with Rihanna. So I'm very excited to be here. I'm also a mentor at the Harvard Innovation Labs for the last 10 years, so I've seen quite a bit. And I'm excited to share what little I know to help as many people as possible.
Great, Emmy. Well, thank you so much for moderating this panel. And Adrian, my name's Jen. I work at Innovate at BU, which is a cross-campus initiative at Boston University to enable all BU Terriers, which is our mascot, to be drivers of innovation and develop an entrepreneurial mindset. And I'm the director of external affairs, so I do a lot of managing our mentors that work with, the hundreds of students that engage in our various programs. And I'll kick it off to Cindy, who does a lot of the same things that I probably do at Babson.
Yeah, you'll see a lot of common themes as we go through. Hi, everyone. I'm Cindy Klein-Marmer. I'm one of our directors of the Blank Center for Entrepreneurship at Babson College. I specifically manage and direct our acceleration programs, both from our academic year programs as well as our 10-week summer programs. We have a number of different resources. I will just say, we can do a quick little plug. We are about 45 years ago, actually 45 years ago around this time, when entrepreneurship was almost considered a bad word. It was not considered favorable among business folks and especially business schools. At that time, Babson opened their first Center for Entrepreneurship. And 25 years ago, we actually were a named center and endowed. And so we've been able to bring different programs. So we keep evolving our programs and our resources for alums. But and a big thing for us is we work with our Babson students as well as alumni. And then we also collaborate with students from and allow students from Olin College and Wellesley College to also participate in our programs as part of the Babson Olin Wellesley Collaborative. And then what's really nice about all of the schools that are represented up here, as well as the entrepreneurs, is that there are some other resources that we do that we pull in that are cross-college collaborative. So even though some of our programs that we mentioned may be specific to our school, there are ways that we'll mention throughout the panel that are open to everyone. Turn it over to.
Thank you, Cindy. I appreciate it. A pleasure to share this panel with you all. Good afternoon. My name is Eduardo Reaga. I'm the Chief Financial Officer for Stavi, a Boston-based startup, Series A. We founded this organization about 3 years ago here at MIT. The founder and a couple of members of the C-suite were classmates from MIT Sloan 2016 to 2018. So it was a great to get together after a couple of years out of school and start building this organization, which is creating technology for facilitating real estate transactions, offering different types of solutions such as e-signing, e-recording, and remote online notarization. So we're hoping to remove all the paper out of the real estate transaction. So all the different stack of paper you're signing when purchasing a property, hopefully it's going to get removed by Stavi. So happy to be here with you all. During the time of building this organization, we continue to tap a lot of MIT resources. And at the time we spent, at MIT Sloan, we went through all the different organization and the ecosystem, including Sandbox, including the Margin Trust, and including VMS. And I'm happy to share a lot of the experiences I had during my time at MIT, and now as a Chief Financial Officer, which continue to work with MIT when we're getting lost on pricing, revenue, et cetera, et cetera. So thank you again.
Great. Well, super excited to be here with all of you. And before we dive into questions today, I think just a couple of housekeeping things. One is the panel is going to cover a lot of amazing ways that you students can start unlocking resources on your campuses around entrepreneurship today. But we also definitely want to hear your voices as well. So we're going to try to leave about 10 to 15 minutes for questions at the end. So as we're speaking, definitely keep your questions in mind and don't hesitate to either drop them in the chat if you're virtual or raise your hand if you're here. And we also want to start by getting to know you a little bit better. So if you're online, there is a poll. We'd love to hear if you're coming to us as a student who might be interested in kind of exploring entrepreneurship resources on your campus, if you're already engaged in those resources, if you're a faculty or a staff member. So please let us know, and I can see some responses coming in, so that's great. Awesome. Well, I think we'll get started at the beginning. This is a question that I definitely get a lot from our students at Harvard. So for students who might just be starting their entrepreneurship journeys, what are some resources that they could take advantage of to kind of get in at the ground level and kickstart that journey? And maybe Jen, we can start with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like Cindy said, I want to plug a resource that's available to everybody, not just students at BU. Although I do work at BU, and we host with partnership with Babson, UNH, Emerson, Northeastern, Harvard, Tufts. We host a thing called the IdeaCon. If you Google it, it's IdeaCon. It's happening October 14th. But this is a free student conference. We think it's the largest student entrepreneurial conference. So that's a great way to kind of, dip your toe in the water. Like Emmy said, if you're just starting out on your resources, IdeaCon's a great place to start. And similar to Startup Boston, it's an event where you can meet fellow student entrepreneurs. So I would definitely recommend that. But definitely just walking in and checking out. Most colleges and universities have incubator programs now, accelerator programs, and often a lot of the staff host office hours. So that's another way that I would kind of just get your foot in the door. I know I host office hours. I'm sure Cindy does. So office hours would probably be another good resource.
Cindy, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I'll just add, don't be afraid to walk in and say hello and introduce yourself. The ones that have come and talked to us and meet face to face, and for those online, we do a lot of online stuff. One of the things that I've done with office hours is over the last few years, I bring my drop-in office hours to where the students are. So I'll each week there's sort of a given day and time. Tuesdays at 11:30, you'll find me at different places on campus, and I'll have I notify folks in advance. And I will say that we also do a similar version, a peer-to-peer version online as well for those who can't get to campus or to loop in our alumni. I love our small group opportunities. So you can leverage this. You can leverage kind of getting involved by even reaching out to current students that have been involved in some of the programs. All of the universities, when they have a 10 or 12-week accelerator, will often tout which students like Eduardo and that have gone through the programs, and so you can reach out to any of them. Our alumni from all of the schools will be really willing to tell you about at your school, how do you get involved and what are the first things to do. But again, whether it's office hours or drop-in type sessions, get to know the folks. And if you're in doubt or you're not sure, or you're at a smaller school where maybe they don't have a full center, reach out to the entrepreneurship faculty and say hello, because they'll know where to go with the next resource.
And Eduardo and Adrian, maybe Eduardo, we'll start with you. Do you have any specific tips for people who are just looking to kickstart their journey?
I would like to say, and I thank you for providing a lot of resources. I think that's applicable to all the different universities that we're representing. But I think something that I found very effective during my 2 years at Sloan is you got to be part of the ecosystem. It's not only tapping the ecosystem, you got to be part of the ecosystem. You can participate in events like this one, just being part of the organization or being part of different student associations that are working with all these services. It's the best way to really get the exposure to either students, alumni, professors, mentors. During my time, I participated in a program for the executive MBA students, and it was fantastic just to be able to connect with all the different resources. Margin Trust. It was always easy to get access to all the different alumni and associations. So just being part of the ecosystem will give you a different panorama. So do not hesitate. I know that you're going to find amazing people like Cindy and Jan, but you got to be part of it. You got to own it.
Love that.
And Adrian, as someone who's spoken to a lot of students who are taking advantage of these resources, what are some things that you tell them at the start of their journey?
The thing that I talk about the most, the one thing is, and I agree 100%, make sure that you get in and that you're networking and that you're finding your peers, persons that are similar stage of your journey to talk to. You can get a ton of insight. And what that leads to, and what I talk about a lot is, okay, you're here, you're in the room, but how are you telling your story? So, as you talk to others and as you're talking to even advisors who are trying to help you, place you with funding, everything, your story is really important. Why are you memorable to them, right? That is a really, really important thing. So the preparation for anyone that you speak to regarding funding is really, really important. Refining your elevator pitch, and if you have already started something, do you have is your branding, decent? I mean, a lot of the time people leave branding till the end or after the fact, and I think it's important to, find a young designer around your or your peers that you can pay, I don't know, $20 an hour for a couple of hours to just help to refine your brand a little bit. And I think that is very, very helpful as you look for resources. And I advocate for it being right at the beginning and not at the end.
And I love what you just said on that. I would even say, practice what you're telling, and you've got people right here, right now, in the room or online. Talk to each other before today's over. You've been in a session together. That's enough. Your network starts right here, and so build that network every time you're out. And it's each time you're practicing your story, and you'll get better at it. You'll see what sort of lands and what things, where they're like, they ask a question, and then figure out how to bring those points into your next storytelling.
And Adrian, you touched on funding for a moment. So I think that's a great segue to kind of think about what things you all think students should be thinking about as they're getting their ventures ready to receive funding. Are there any key themes or resources specifically that students should really focus on? Maybe Adrian, we can start with you again.
So I've worked with and invested in a couple of startups, and the biggest thing that I find, and one of the hardest thing, is to who's your target, and developing your short list of persons that you want to approach. And some of the most successful ways are just asking some of your peers who might be going after similar things, but you start there. LinkedIn is also a feature, but you develop a spreadsheet with your 10, 15, 20 people that you want to meet. And then you divide them up in columns into warm, cold, or freezing, or whatever you want to think, because there's some people that are going to be easier to get to than others, right? And so you identify the level of difficulty. And so, if somebody, you have no connection to anybody on LinkedIn, a person on LinkedIn, that's going to be a little bit more of a search. And, it's a tough journey. So you have to make sure that you're getting one or two conversations. The second thing is, as you get conversations, at the end of that conversation, always ask for one person to be introduced to at the end of that conversation. And that, who else should I be talking to, is something that I've heard asked quite a bit. And that leads you, and that helps to build your list over time and keeps the momentum going.
Eduardo, do you have any input?
I do have a lot of fun stories and scary stories about this. So as a chief financial officer, I was telling Amy when I just arrived that the one piece that we always skip when building our ventures or businesses is defining the principles for cash management. We know that hopefully you're going to be able to raise a lot of capital. Something that as a new organization or as a new venture that you're building, you need to start thinking about what are the principles I'm going to put in place for deploying that capital. At Stabby, for just to give you one example, when I joined about 2 years ago, there was nothing. There was no policies. So a lot of the cash that it was sitting in the bank account, it was deploying in ways that, fast forward 2 years later, we're like, oh my God, we really missed managing cash in a better way. There's always going to be better ways. There's always going to be room for improvement. But if you continue to think about how you build your idea, your value proposition, your brand, your target list, all the different elements of your venture, always think about how are you going to be deploying that funding. It's going to be extremely important in these market conditions. Cash is limited, cash is finite. So whenever you get it, whenever you're ready to start deploying, what are the areas you're going to deploy, and you're going to be trading off. There's going to be situations that you're probably not going to get your branding person day one. You will need to probably get a seller first, or whatever may be, a DevOps individual. So a lot of the principles and mechanics you need for building those foundations, think about it as you continue to build your ventures.
Yeah, take it from the CFO. Right? Cindy, how about you? As students are coming to you and saying, I think I might be ready or getting ready to receive some funding, what do you point them to?
Absolutely. I'm even going to step one step before that, where when you're first starting out and you know you need some cash, you need some money to do something, to actually start your business. I find a lot of folks, right when they come with the idea, they're like, okay, and I need funding. And we try to break it down to think first on, timing's really important. So what do you need? What would you use the money for? Because especially, and I think, Adrian, you mentioned it earlier, if it's for branding or if it's for raw materials for your product, maybe it's for photography because you're trying to get some of your product up online for an e-commerce site. There are people in your network, probably that you don't even realize have that skill that you could, and maybe it's $20 an hour, but maybe it's a meal. Maybe it's, somebody who's been out of the workforce for a few years and you're part of their new portfolio so that they can actually get back into the workforce. So there's lots of people who want to help you. And I think we're really fortunate here in Boston. So start with kind of where you need the money for, or what you need the money for, so that you can look to see if there's ways to acquire that asset or that resource without actually spending money. But when you do need money, I will say, I would think that all of the universities that are represented here have different forms of seed funding. Babson even has, separate from our seed funding for entrepreneurs, we have both an undergraduate fund for that the college does if you're trying to enhance your experience at the school, and our graduate school has a student leadership initiative fund that's similar that you can use to augment your education, your studies. We find that folks will sometimes do something, will get money from there or our Babson seed fund to apply to their business. So you're always looking at kind of what do you need the money for first, and then I'm not going to quite talk about the angel, and I'll leave that to angel and venture capital. But I will say most people typically come way too early, think they're ready for VC funding or angel funding. And so if you leave with something else, it's not quite resource focused, it's more mindset, but be problem obsessed and customer obsessed. Mm-hmm. Don't fall in love with the solution, fall in love with the problem of a specific customer group. Because if you have that, then when you come to angels and you come and you tell us about your what you're working on, even if you haven't quite developed all of the business model, but we know you've got a market that's interested and you've got a solution that's really going to fit the problem, that is an area where we can get really excited about and start to think about that early funding, even pre-seed and even some of the much smaller angel type funding.
Yeah, I'll just add, I can't take credit for this term. One of our experts in residence is named Justin Kane. He's the director for Visitable Hands, which is a really great accelerator program that you guys should totally check out. But he did a workshop for us at BU where he talked about resource magnetism. So think about resources just not as money, but as space. So we have a lot of students at Innovate at BU that use the Build Lab space as a resource. We give students free space. So it's not just about money, right? Like sometimes space can be a resource. And I got to tell a story. She may be online. Neve, one of my amazing students, she started a nonprofit in high school and she's trying to raise money. And I said to her, and she's looking at all these big grants with like the Patriots and foundations. And I go, well, Neve, have you asked me to give you $20, $100? You know what I mean? I would probably give one of my students that I'm really passionate about some money for her. It's survivors awareness. She's raising money to help students who have been, survivors of sexual assault. I would give to that cause. That's something I'm passionate about. So, don't discredit just your initial friends and family when you're first starting out, when you're bootstrapping. And she still hasn't sent me an email asking for money, so I got to remind her. But and then the other thing I'll just add is at Innovate at BU, similar to Babs and similar to Harvard, and we give out like initial grants. And at Innovate at BU, we don't take equity. So depending upon which programs you're applying for, you can get $5,000 at Innovate at BU. You can get $10,000 if you do our summer accelerator. So just really be on lookout for the funding at your campuses, and be proactive and going to the info sessions, applying. We have competitions that I'm sure you guys have too. So there's a lot of money at your own college when you're first getting started that you should totally look into.
So it sounds like everyone should pitch Jen for their. Awesome. Well, Cindy and Jen, I might actually come back to you, leaving it there. I think we'd love to hear a little bit more about your perspective, maybe even beyond the funding, on what the actual benefits of joining an incubator program at a university are for students, and also what types of students should consider applying.
I think it definitely depends on the type of, and I'll, back when we started our Butler Launchpad back in 2010, I remember thinking, we called it an accelerator. And fast forward to today, the umbrella that we call our Butler Launchpad is more of an incubator. The words back then were kind of like interchangeable. And I think for a lot of the programs, we have our Butler Launchpad is sort of a hub for resources. We have different programs underneath that are if you're looking for more structure and guidance along the way. But that program we specifically built so that it could take the masses. And so we built it with an idea of a pay it forward mindset. Students are asked to give, so as they gain additional resources or more as they move their business forward, we ask them to pay it forward and actually give back to other folks. And so through a lot of our small group sessions, they're always sort of being almost like that mock board for each other. So getting back to your question, I'd say there are different types of acceleration and incubation programs that are available to you. There are public ones that are available to everybody through like Mass Challenge and partners like that. You've got smaller college-based programs, many that give grants. And when Babson and BU and others give grants at the college level, they're typically, I won't say this for everyone, but at least at both BU, I think Northeastern as well, and Babson, we don't take equity. These are grants, not an investment in your business with terms and everything. But on those acceleration programs, if you look for the stage, look for some are focused on earlier stage business. Some are looking for you to be revenue generating. I think we pivoted right around COVID, and during the pandemic, we went a little earlier. We're back now to looking at folks who are just, who either have minimal viable product or have a prototype at least, but are ready to do, because one of our programs, I'd say, focuses very much on the sales and marketing side of things. And so you really need to be just a little further. We always, and actually, this goes especially to university and college run programs. If you think that you're on the cusp or you're not sure if you're eligible, but you can get there, apply. Even if you're a little bit outside the scope of exactly what they say is eligible. I say this because we are, even when you mentioned wanting to give Vay for their nonprofit, I was thinking that this is something that we often will say, this is our criteria, but if we find someone on the cusp and it's looking at the team, it's looking at their product market fit and just really understanding where they're going, we will often take chances. And so it's usually at least one spot that that we try to it may be for diversity reasons, it may be for, there's something about that business that has caught us and we believe there's potential there. So you can look beyond. I know I probably answered some of that. I'm going to hand it to Jen so she can.
Yeah, so it's who should join and what are the benefits. So we've talked about funding in terms of like who should join. I think it really depends upon the program. Like Cindy was saying, like you just have to be at BU. We have different programs for different stages. So we have like an idea incubator. That's just if you're idea curious or you're not sure if you have an idea yet. How do I start? So you just have to look at what your college or university offers and determine what program makes the most sense. But I really think everybody should join. At BU, we're a cross-campus initiative. We're not housed under one specific school. We get really excited. We had a student in our summer accelerator program who was from the School of Theology. He's a graduate student at the School of Theology. So, and he's trying to do a consulting business for churches. So really anybody can join. And I know at Innovate at BU, even if you don't want to like take the leap and actually apply for one of our programs or apply for one of our competitions, we have a ton of events. I'm sure you guys have a ton of events that wouldn't require like an actual application. So I think I tell all my students when I do info sessions and when I do tabling at BU, like this is the only place at BU where you're actually getting your tuition dollars back. So, you might as well take advantage of these resources and I love how MIT calls it a sandbox because it's really just like a safe place to play and fail and try and really build up the confidence that even if you don't do this startup, I've had students who start a startup, build some traction, but it doesn't work. But Glow, she did a talk yesterday. She's working at product development at HBO. So it's like you'll never know what you get out of taking the resources at your college and university.
And I would, I love what you're talking about that. The benefits, and you nailed it right there on that. When you get involved, you start to actually meet people and you never know where that will lead. All of our programs, so many of our programs, when you're in an undergrad, and I imagine when you think about the size of BU's campus, Babson is much smaller on a size of number of students, but there are still undergrads who maybe haven't worked with graduate students. Our programs are age agnostic. And so I think entrepreneurship is really age agnostic. And so the more you can bring people together, a lot of times we bring people together we have undergraduates, we have our different current graduate students, as well as our alumni. And when they come together all together, that's one of the reasons you join the acceleration programs, because you're going to meet a different network, you're going to expand, and you're going to have people who are as obsessed with entrepreneurship as you are, or and passionate about your type of business, and they become your cheerleading squad. Yeah. And I don't mean that just as someone who's going to say, yeah, you're doing it when you're feeling down, but also that support of saying, hey, I'm going to start up Boston tomorrow. Who else is going? We've got our WhatsApps from our summer program where people were, chatting and connecting. And when we go to a networking event, you've got someone else you can go with, even if you're a solo entrepreneur, so that when you get there and you start to talk to someone and you're not really sure what to say, you've got someone next to you can say, or, hey, have you met, Eduardo? He's amazing and he's working on this really great startup. You should talk about such and such. So I'd say the network, the resources are great. And we all provide that. But I'm going to say it's the network that is probably one of the biggest benefits for you.
And Adrian can even talk about at Harvard how he's a mentor, right? So like he is donating his time to mentor students. Students would never meet you, right?
Yeah, no, I think it's everything that said, the benefits, there's so many levels to the different programs at schools, and mentorship is a big part. And if you can access it, that's, invaluable in so many different ways. The entrepreneurial journey is definitely one that's up and down, especially when you're just starting and you're not sure if your idea is viable or think your traction isn't as quick as you would like it to be. All those are things that you need support. And I think there's tons of resources, free resources at Harvard and in general, from mentors, advisors that can be really helpful there.
Maybe we could even switch it to the student or founder perspective for a bit. I wonder if you've all heard any tangible takeaways from anyone who's been a success story, who's taken advantage of some of these resources, perhaps. Eduardo?
Well, definitely being an organization that is founded from a MIT Sloan and bringing people from Sloan to continue to build up the business has been a great experience on tapping resources at MIT. So Costa, who is the CEO and founder, he's an entrepreneur in residence at MIT, the Matching Trust. And plus, being students, we continue to go back and access professors, mentors for different topics throughout the journey. So that's been it's always part of the way we're thinking and making decisions. Even nowadays, is leaning into Series B. If we have a question around like go-to-market strategies or pricing, we always go back. No matter we have a lot of resources that you can tap on the internet, you can go back to your pricing professor and ask, am I creating this subscription model that is, compelling to the problem I'm trying to solve for? She probably will tell us, no, you're totally wrong. You got to do it this way. But my point is, you always can have those resources available for you. And you were mentioning about age agnostic. That's 100% applicable. You can move left to right and going back to your institution or university, and also tapping your classmates, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, that's been kind of our operating mode.
Adrian, have you heard anything from students that you've worked with? Any tangible takeaways?
I think, I think I hinted at this earlier, but the no's are more than the yeses a lot of the times, especially when it comes to funding. From personal experience, I invested in a venture of the iLab called Naya Studio, and their list of persons that they were trying to get there was, I believe it was like 500 different, persons on their list. And they interviewed over 300 of them, or they had meetings with over 300 of them, to land their first round. And so, within that journey was really rough. It's 9 months, of more no's than yeses. And so having that resilience and not getting too down about things. I mean, I think if the mindset is to learn throughout those conversations, I think that's really, really important. So even if it's a no, and you can pick up one or two things, you should always be actively listening for how you can learn in this environment, so that you take away something positive, even if the answer is no, we're not going to fund you.
Jen, have you heard anything from students?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, I'm trying to think about what like success story I want to pick, because there's so many. Just, I think a lot of this team is just like telling your story and just starting and going and not feeling like you have to be perfect. And I had a student who signed up for one of the events I run. It's called Speed Mentoring. It's just like speed dating, where I recruit external mentors like Adrian to come and sit and talk to our student entrepreneurs. And one of them ended up getting a job out of it, right? Like didn't apply, like just the mentor was so, impressed by his enthusiasm and his smarts that job sight on scene. And then he got like so good that now he got a W-2 job, and now he's like a consultant to them. So it's crazy. He was a software developer, but it's funny. Like we had a student, he's gotten some good traction. His name's Kevin Tang. His business is called Cleanina, and talking about Cindy being obsessed with the problem. His problem is a self-cleaning toilet seat, right? Like public restrooms are dirty, right? So he came up with, I'm going to have a toilet seat that automatically cleans itself. And, he was on the cover of the Boston Globe's business section. He's been on Channel 5 News lately. I think his products are on sale. So if you check it out, you can buy a home version right now. So kudos to Kevin Tane and Cleanina. But, and he started off just by doing a pitch and pizza competition, which is our 1-minute pitch competition. And then, you work at it. So I think you gotta get out there and, success is a loaded term, but just kind of putting your foot forward is a great start.
And Cindy?
I would say one of the takeaways that I'm thinking about in success stories, I will say, I'm going to first say the problem is that whenever you are stuck, when you are sitting there, kind of thinking like, I'm not sure the next step, I'm not sure what to do, or maybe you've gotten one of those many no's and you're not sure where to go next, get out and talk to customers. Yeah. Every time. You are never beyond that customer discovery moment. You can always learn something. I was thinking about one of my students right now is, so he's in a number of our programs last year. He had the ability, and the other thing I'd say is just do it sometimes, but he had the ability to get product for his, he's created, his company's called Performance Backed, and it's a supplement company, and it's around recovery. So post-workout or post-exertion recovery. And he put his e-commerce site up there. He's been really being careful over the summer, focused on different ways to reach his customer base. And, I'd say that he left May saying, I know who my customer is and I know why they need it. Well, nothing speaks louder than the cash, right? Cash is king. And so he was selling on his site, and he starts to look at the analytics. Everything he thought in May is wrong. Not everything, but most things. What he learned was, women over a certain age were actually not only liking his product, but going back and ordering it again and again. This is not who he was marketing to. He was, his mom had been, leveraging the products based on, trying it for the last, 10 months when the product arrived. But he started to reach out to those customers to say, tell me about this. Why are you using it? And he has quickly changed all of his marketing. He found a new beachhead market that he didn't know was there. He's now looking at kind of how he needs to niche at even in-person events to reach that market. And so it's fascinating to me. But I think whenever you can, get out and talk to more customers, and you'll probably see even on my water bottle, I've got some of our businesses out here. And again, for all of them, they've just gotten out there and they've talked to customers time and time again. So.
Awesome. Thank you all. So I think we have a couple minutes before I want to open it up to questions. So keep those in mind and feel free to drop them in the chat if you have them. But I'd like to switch gears a little bit here and talk specifically about diversity and inclusion at universities. Maybe Jen, we can start with you. How are universities focusing on diversity and inclusion as it relates to entrepreneurship now?
Yeah, so as we all know, the world of entrepreneurship is catered towards like white men, right? So how can we make sure that we're getting, non-traditional, underrepresented founders involved in our program? So Innovative BU's made a very conscious effort that DEIAB is a big part of our values. Diversity, equity, inclusion, accessibility, and belonging. And what we do is we actually are working with student clubs who work with underrepresented founders, and we're targeting them. We're going to their club meetings to tell them about Innovative BU. So we're trying to get them from the start. So I think that that's the first part of our problem, is recognizing that how can we get more students involved in our programs? Well, it's by going out to those students and getting them involved. So we're doing our part and making sure that those types of students have the resources available to them.
Cindy, do you have anything to add to that one?
I agree with everything that Jen just said. We also have a program. So yes, on the funding, I also just I was thinking about one other as we talk about diversity. We have, again, in the US, even when you're trying to raise funding, the status of whether you are a US citizen or international student or can come into play quite a bit, even with investors. And so one of the programs that we have that is not just for Babson students, and there are other programs like this at UMass. Boston has a program like this. It's our Global Entrepreneur in Residence program. And you can apply as long as you are have the equivalent of a US bachelor's degree. So if you've come here for your undergraduate or graduate degree in the US, and you have they're a little bit different, the program that's at UMass versus Babson. For Babson, we require the business to be well underway. UMass, it does a little bit differently. They bring you on, they actually hire you, and then so I'm not doing a great job of quickly explaining it, but we have lots of information on it. I will say if you're international and you are working on a business, there are programs and resources for you specifically. Depending on the stage, I might recommend UMass for certain times and for Babson for others, and also the type of business you have. There are programs at other states as well. So if that's something of interest, take a look at, it's called Global Entrepreneur in Residence or Global EIR. And then I would say on the other side, when it's not diversity on the side of international and domestic, we spend a lot of time, and I appreciate that. I would say, I don't think you can be in academia today. I hope that you can't be in academia today without actually really putting this as a top priority. And so it's been a thing where we've we've looked at diversity in so many different ways. At Babson, we're also even looking at economic diversity. And so you're constantly looking at how can we reach this. And I loved we do a lot with the student clubs because we try to go first to the students. And then we also, and I believe you do as well, we reserve some of our funding specifically for individuals that are part of our underrepresented minorities at our school. And so there my boundaries might expand because I have some of my students who say, I can't actually do that minimal viable product because I don't have the funds to go make that prototype. And so where I might say to someone else they need to be a little further along, I look for those businesses that that I can actually fund a little earlier as well. So.
And Adrian, I think that you had a really interesting perspective on this as well. Could you speak to that a bit?
Yeah, no, I think, as you heard, obviously, there's a lot of work that still needs to be done when it comes to DEI. And at iLab, Emmy has run affinity groups, and there's been a lot of efforts, and all the way through to our accelerator program with very intentional efforts to do to make a difference. I think one of the things that obviously the hardest thing is access to funding, because there's a lot of programs, but the coin really turns on what converts to funding for underrepresented founders, and that is where the rubber hits the road, and it's one of the hardest nuts to crack up until now. But one thing I would say is that unrepresented founders tend to be a little bit quiet, and I think there are opportunities for them to use their voice more. So if something doesn't exist, there should be questions, there should be ideas, being put forward to try to help nudge, the university and to introduce more programs or get more creative about how to create funding opportunities. So I would just say, use your voice as well. Don't just wait for resources to be created for you, but try as best you can, collectively if you can, with others. You'll meet a lot of persons through your networks, and definitely use your voice to try to push the needle.
Absolutely.
I think
Bartle?
just last, and now probably more from a venture that is already operating, we being intentional since day one on D&I is extremely important. Similar to what I mentioned about funding and cash allocation, blah, 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 values and establishing values and principles of the organization since day one, intentionally around D&I is extremely important. At Stavi, one of our key values, and actually is the first value, is who you are is who we are. So we normally celebrate every single action and decisions we're making that are helping on promoting D&I across the different functions and or the different customer segments or whatever may be the case. So again, from the outset, creating the environment for all the decisions that you're going to make in the future, it's critical. So that's what we have at Stavi.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love that. Who you are is who we are. Jen, did you?
Yeah,
have
can I
something?
just add one thing? Yeah, I think like we're just trying to create like safe spaces for everybody. That's like our most important goal at a college and university. So we want you to feel valued and heard. And I think I'll add like beyond your college and university and companies that focus on DE&I, like there are other awesome organizations. And I know at Innovate at BU, we work with Golden Seeds, who's trying to help, women founders. We work with Visible Hands, who's trying to work with underrepresented founders. We work with the Boston Impact Initiative. So I just want to put in a plug for those three organizations because they immediately come to mind. The Boston Impact Initiative, Visible Hands, and Golden Seeds, because there's a lot of people that are looking at this problem right now, and they know it's important. So I'm glad we're talking about it on this panel. Emmy, thanks for asking that question.
Yeah, I think we all share that perspective that student voices, your voices are the most important to us. So with that, if we have any questions, we'd love to take those for the panel.
We do. Great job
Thank
so
you
far,
for
everyone.
volunteering.
moving on to questions. And please present yourself and then ask your question.
Thank you so much for sharing your information, but I'm sorry I came late. My name is Tamana Tadla. I'm a returned Peace Corps volunteer, served in Ethiopia 2016-2018. Since then, I work in international development, and then now I coming back to graduate school to WPI, Worcester Polytechnic Institute. I'm kind of like coming back, reflecting, having the experience in field engineering work and then coming back to graduate school as a great experience to create some value, which is like a kind of, that's why I'm here to create some startup business, because one, to bridging the gap between global south, global north, to sharing the technology and then the knowledge between those region. But I wanted to establish locally how I can create it for the local communities where I'm originally from, Ethiopia. So there is a lot of community, Ethiopian and Eritreans. So I wanted to like applying what is the biotech means for the local, because a lot of people living around here. So in order to create that kinds of business, I'm thinking like to bridging the gap between the universities and the industries, the biotech industries. So I wanted to like feeling that in order to fill the gaps, I wanted to create in that's the institutions, how where I should start the businesses, and then how I can also if I create in the local businesses, it's for me it will be sustainable and stable for local economy, and then also it will take me to my global education, global development career. So that's why I'm here, like where it's the best way, and then how I should start the business. Thank you.
So for biotech specifically, any resources?
Biotech is like my personal background, because I finished my first degree and then associate and then first degree from first a community college from Bunker Hill, and then transferred to WPI, Worcester Polytechnic 2015, and finished bioengineering, biomedical engineering. So that's why I'm kind of like, biotech is like the hub, Cambridge is the hub of the, so that's why I'm kind of like focusing, but my goal is using that technology, that knowledge to expand to global public health.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Have you checked out Mass Bio at all? They're a great and unbelievable organization here. So yeah, definitely Mass Bio. And I think IdeaCon may be a great place because we have some workshops with some biotech leaders coming to that conference. IdeaCon 2023, if you do your Google, on October 14th. So I know there's a professor doing this type of work for how to get started in the life sciences. So,
And I thought I would also suggest, you mentioned WPI and Bunker College. I would actually look at both faculty from both, because I think starting with faculty, they may know resources that they've spoken on panels. I'd look at other trade organizations. I know, like I'm thinking about, there's a more on the med devices side. I know there's different groups that have that meet regularly, and you'll find both startups and established companies in there. So from the community side, and then that will help you on the building and bridging back. I will say though, as you're building this, get back to that problem part. You know, what are you trying to solve specifically in that space with biotech, so that you can, because that will also help direct some of the resources as well. So,
Thank you for your question. Anyone else?
Okay. My name is Omkar. I'm a master's in quantitative finance student at Northeastern. And I have a startup named Splitin. We are a peer-to-peer roommate matchmaker website. And we are our users basically upload the pictures of their apartments that they're currently living in, and list out to our website. And ask users whether they want to live in the apartment that I'm going to move out from, or you want someone like, if my flatmate is moving out from my apartment, would you like to come replace him? So yeah, and I like what Stavi is doing as of now, because um, I believe the broker market has been there for a really long time, and just like TurboTax did in CPA for IRS, I believe this is also a market that could be tapped. And every year students come, to be honest, every year new students come, and it's a huge town, mass. And only two states, New Jersey and Massachusetts, are the only two states where brokers don't get paid from the landlords for listing their websites, listing their apartments on their sites. So yeah, my question was actually, for a pre-seed, because I'm from Northeastern, so they also have an Idea Lab. So I am registered with Idea Lab at Northeastern. So they are a accelerator. Uh, they also are coming up with the Husky Startup Challenge. It's also in end of September. What would you suggest for a pre-seed or seed? Pre-seed, to be honest, and how much capital should someone raise in pre-seed, if there is not such a great requirement for capital, but mandatory requirement for little bit registration, software solutions, back end, front end? What would be the ideal value that you could put on for a software solution company in a pre-seed?
Well, I will say,
Yeah, the
sorry.
CFO. The CFO should answer this one.
Well, first of all, I think that just getting the basic economics of the business will give you an idea of what are you targeting, what is the TAM. Probably you're going to use it in the different stages. But coming back to seed, and I said at the beginning of the conversation, obviously being extremely thorough on the way you're going to be allocating those resources will give you kind of the opportunity or the number you're targeting. Again, with these market conditions and the way that capital is being allocated across the board, you got to be extremely thorough. The way that VCs or other institutions that are funding either early stages or more advanced organizations are way more detailed than in the past. So you cannot come up with a number that is not substantiated. So if you're going to be applying for, I don't know, AWS, you need to spend a lot of money, and that's an annual subscription. There's ways to be creative, get credits that you can decrease the amount of cash you need at the front, and then you're probably going to be building your projections on volume and blah blah blah. But as a starter, you got to be just extremely thorough on the way you detail it. So when you go and ask, you're not going to be exaggerating, and you're going to be timing based on your economics. So that's my recommendation. Again, this is broad, but that's the only way you can kind of scope the amount of cash you need.
And this isn't your question, but there is a student at BU working on a very similar idea. So just to promote, and Emmy may even know this, we have cross-university mixers. I know we did one, and Babson students were there and tests were there. So, and the student at BU that works on this idea, he's a part of BU's E-Club. And I know Northeastern and BU's E-Club are very close. So just building your network, I feel like that's been a common theme, because you and the student at BU may, build a team, you know what I mean? Because I know he's working on a very similar idea. So find people that don't look at them as threats, look at them as maybe we could work together. Yeah.
Great. So we've got 4 minutes.
Okay.
We've got 2 questions in the audience. We'll probably get through one. Would any of you be able to stick around for 5 minutes afterwards to speak with students afterwards? Great, wonderful.
I'll just give a shout out. The next cross-university mixer will actually be next Friday, and Tufts is hosting. So
I'll try to be fast. I am Marcelo Cesar. I am self-taught computer science student. I graduated from high school last year. I work internationally as software engineer since 16. I've been working a product, software. So my question is, what do I need in order to pitch to investor? I need funding to scale and speed it up. And I've been pitching public, like people in the church, about my product, and I got a good feedback. And one of the feedback I got here, I pitched someone here, and she told me if I create this product, companies would want to buy it. And I got big feedback from the public as well. So that's the question. What do I need in order to, like, I've been working in mobile business model and go-to-market strategy. So do I need a prototype in order to go to investor?
I think one question I have for you is, are you, you mentioned you've gotten great feedback, which I love, kudos, because you're telling your story, which is important. Are some of the feedback that you're hearing from the people that are your potential target customer, your beachhead market? Like the initial group that you think that you would go after, have you been talking to them? Because that's.
Yes, I have my client idea. Like I know who's my target, so I go directly to them. About my product is event management plus dating app. So I'm combining two sectors. So I have different kind of opinions from them. So I really that will be helpful. So it allows me to improve my product and shift direct to their interest. Yeah.
So I love that you're also computer science background, because you have that advantage of being able to build part of it, if not the whole thing, without actually hiring someone else. Or if you do, I'd say I'd encourage you in that case, before you go to funders, the more you can do with your background, to actually get something out and then in front of a potential customer. So because it's more of a direct consumer, it's a little bit harder, because that's, one consumer might have a different opinion than another consumer. But if you can, what I always look to see is I'm always looking about de-risking. And so is there even an offline version that you can do to test this out? So is there a way before you build everything that you could put some small piece together? It's not really your minimal viable product. It's not viable in that sense or saleable, but it's a minimal tangible product, that MTP, where you can go out and you can get something in front of a real customer, because the feedback you get from there is going to be super important, because investors are going to want to hear that. They want to know from the real market, not, and I'm going to plug the mom test is it's a short PDF. It's available as a short book or a PDF online. But it helps you get in that mindset of that customer discovery, and everything you learn from that is going to help you with the investors. So I'm sort of saying build something small, just to get as the least you have to build in order to start getting in front of customers, to have conversations. You're not selling, you're just trying to have conversations or run a market test.
Yeah, about that, I'm currently working on my prototype MVP. Yeah, thanks.
I like that.
So we're actually out of time right now, and so we've got to end the session. Thank you all very much. This was a wonderful, wonderful, helpful, instructive session. They're going to stick around for 5 minutes, so anybody wants to talk with anyone on the panel, one-to-one, they'll be here for another 5 minutes.